Okay, so I'm going on to chapter 1. It's a little bit about my family and my upbringing, just a little bit. All right, my name is Nargissan El-Moghazi. Everyone calls me Narcy because growing up, I couldn't even pronounce my real name, so I made up Narcy. My father bought me a plant when I was a child and told me I was named after it. It was an Egyptian white flower. To me, it smelled really bad. So now I just tell everyone I was named after a stinky flower. Growing up, I was picked on by everyone because of my name. Now that I'm older, I've learned to love it. One of my biggest faults in life was the urge to please people. As long as everyone around me was happy, I thought I was. I was born October 7th, 1985, in Raleigh, North Carolina, at Duke Hospital in Durham County. My father was, God rest his soul, from Mansoura, Egypt. My father grew up poor, helping his mother with his brothers and sisters. His father died early in his life, and he had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. He was a twin, but his twin died at birth. He would have had 4 sisters if she survived. My father has always been the funniest person that ever existed in my eyes. My father would enter a room, and automatically the entire room would light up. My father was a god to me. He was my hero. He was my hero. Right when my father came to the United States, he was 23 years old, and his mother packed his suitcases. She packed a soup called molokhaya. It was green, and my father's mother sealed it in freezer bags. It was his favorite because my father loved it. When he got off the plane in the U.S. Security cornered him and searched all his bags because they couldn't figure out what this green substance was. The way my father told the story was hilarious. Mind you, he didn't speak a lick of English at this time. The airport security had him in custody for hours before they released him. My father studied and devoted his life to his work and his family the best way that he knew how to. One of the first jobs my father got in the States was as a bartender. I learned this many years later, growing up. Well, growing up, my father was anti alcohol, so finding this out was a surprise to me. It really was. My father met my mother in North Carolina while he was studying. From what I can, while he was studying, from what I can remember, she was a free spirit, an American white woman who came from a broken home. My father wanted better for her, so he encouraged her to get her GED. He helped tutor her. Her and my father ended up getting married and giving birth to little Elmo, my older brother, and me shortly after. We're only a year apart. Right after I was born, my father decided to move all of us to Auburn, Alabama. My father ended up completing school and became a professor of textiles at Auburn University, one of the most profound colleges in the USA, well known for college football. My father was always at work, studying, traveling or on business trips. My brother and I spent a lot of time with my mother up until we were 3 and 4, if I'm not mistaken. My mother had a lot of friends. We were always around them while my father was working to provide. There's not much I remember during the few years my mom was around. I know my first encounter as a child being molested was by a white older male from her side of the family. All I really can remember was sitting on a riding lawnmower riding around the yard for hours as this man touched me in places I would kill a man if I found out it happened to my child. My mother was probably oblivious. Hell, I don't know. There are questions I know I'll never get true answers to. I was told growing up that my mother was on drugs and alcohol and just up and left us, but I know there's a lot more to the story. My father was probably just trying to protect my brother and I, or my father's name was being protected. 23 years later, I finally got to hear my mother's side of the story, and I forgive her and love her. It took me going through what I've been through to understand she's only human. We are all only human. My mother went on to tell me that when I was a baby, she dressed me in Cabbage Patch doll clothes because I was so small. She said I was the most beautiful baby she had ever laid eyes on. She said that when I would fall asleep, she would swaddle me and stick me in the dresser drawer right beside her bed so that any little whimper or burp that came from me, she would be there to make sure I was okay. She told me I was a mama's girl and little Elmo was a daddy's boy. Something happened during our childhood that the Department of Children's Services got involved and they removed both little Elmo and me from my father and mother, and we were placed in foster care. This was my second encounter with child molestation. My foster father would come in my room every night, just about. These incidents started feeling normal, like this shit happened to everyone. All right, I'm gonna end it right here, and thanks for hearing me out and listening. I love you guys. I'll continue later.